So in this video, we're going to be talking about how the last warlord standing of the Civil Wars, the boy heir Octavian, becomes the guiding force of the entire Roman world. During this period, there are three separate titles that become attached to, this man that we have previously known as Octavian. And each of them tells a different part of the story. So first of all, he acquires the title Augustus. Now, this is an unprecedented name, and it's given to him not as a title so much as a name. This name that's given to him is meant to indicate the approval and benevolence of the gods. That he is august means that he is an individual who is in some way associated with the will of the divine, that he acts as somebody with the approval of the Roman gods. So this is all in a very sort of tacit, mild way. This is not to say that he is a god himself. But that he comes with the approval of the gods. And this consolidates his position as somebody who is acting on behalf of Rome's greater destiny. The second title is princeps. Now this is something that has a very old Roman history. The person who had the greatest tenure within the Roman Senate throughout the entire Republic was referred to as the princeps senatus, which indicates that he was the person who spoke first. Princeps simply means first. In the context of the Senate, it means first speaker, someone who has the right and privilege by virtue of his experience and standing and auctoritas to begin the debate within the Senate and to essentially set the tone and parameters of what is going to be discussed in relation to whatever is going on in the Senate at that time. Anything that comes before the Senate, the first speaker is always this senior senator, the senator who has the role of princeps senatus. Augustus is taking on the role of princeps for all of the Roman world. What this is essentially saying is that he is the one who has the privilege, by virtue of his standing and auctoritas and the faith and trust that the people have invested in him, that he has the right to speak first and to set the tone and parameters of whatever issues come before the Romans. This is not to say that he has all of the will or all of the power. The role of the princeps is to speak first because of the standing and faith and trust invested in this person as an individual. And this is the key to understanding the principle. The princeps is not an office. It is not a kingship. It is not a constitutional role. It is not like the consulate. It is not like the Roman king. The princeps is the person, the private individual who has the auctoritas, who has the role and responsibility to speak first, literally and metaphorically, on whatever comes before the Romans, not just in the Senate, but in terms of the entirety of the Roman community and polity. This is something that belongs to Octavian Augustus as a person, as a private individual. And this is crucial, because this is the revolution of the populares made manifest, made into a form of government. What the populares had always sought was that the mindless systems that produced the rotating leadership of people because of family and status and so forth, because of things that don't actually contribute to their capability, and that produced vulnerability to Rome and weak leadership and disasters like Orazio. The Populares had always been about turning the faith and trust of the Roman populace away from these mindless systems and institutions, which were functional maybe for the city-state of Rome, but not for the Roman Empire, and replacing it with faith and trust in individuals who had earned this role through their capabilities, through their experience, through their merit, who had won the trust of the people, as individuals. And so the Populares had done this, and this had become manifest through Marius, who was the hero of the people, and Caesar, who was his successor, and even more of a beloved champion of the masses and the soldiers of the Roman world. And the successor to Caesar is Octavian Augustus, who turns this into a form of stability for the entire Roman Empire. It is his role as a person, as the individual heir, as the man who takes on the role of Marius and then Caesar, who is the man who is present in the minds and hearts of the Roman people. This third title, imperator, also has an ancient Roman history. The tradition amongst the Romans is that a general who wins a battle, if the soldiers themselves, after the battle, feel that this victory belongs to the general, that through his leadership and charisma and drive and passion, that he brought the legion to this victory. If the soldiers believe this, then after the battle, what happens is a spontaneous chanting of this word imperator, which is a form of commander, but it means commander by right of the approval and trust of the soldiers, not simply by virtue of his office. And so, this word, had been used, going back centuries, as something that is a gift from the soldiers, as an indication of their love and trust of the general that has led them to victory. And so, Octavian taking on this name of imperator is signifying that he is the leader of Rome's military forces by virtue of the approval that he has earned from the soldiers, that he has brought about the ultimate victory, the conclusion of the civil wars, and peace and prosperity for all of the Roman Empire, and that this victory is due to a leadership that inspired the people that followed him. A quick look ahead at what we're looking at in terms of the overall course of the rest of Roman history, so that you can sort of place Augustus and the Principate within this. So we have Augustus taking up a very large chunk at the beginning of the Principate period. As you can see, the Principate period lasts all the way through the 3rd century crisis, and so we've got 3 centuries of this thing called the Principate, which is leadership by an individual that that has this role of responsibility due to the faith and trust of the people invested in him. This endures in evolving form. Nothing about Roman government ever stays the same. The Roman government is always in flux. And so, but throughout this 300-year period, we have this evolving thing called the princeps that begins with the position that Augustus has. And this passes through several of what we call dynasties, which are sort of like dynasties that we find in kingships, but in a distinctly Roman way, because the princeps is very much not a king. I'll talk more about that in a minute. After the third century crisis, the Roman Empire has almost collapsed and is forced to rebuild itself. It rebuilt itself in a new way with a altered form of leadership. This is called the dominant. We'll talk about this in a couple of weeks. And that's the form in which it endures until the fall of the Western Empire, and it continues in the Eastern Empire. Remember that the Roman Empire endures in the East, which is where all the culture and commerce is, with its capital Constantinople, all the way through into the 15th century CE. So this is just the beginning of a succession of people that in English are called emperors, but this is a name that is applied retroactively that is reflective of various evolving versions of one-man leadership that begins with Augustus. The other thing that's interesting about this is that it doesn't happen all at once. There are several stages to Augustus becoming the sole guiding force of the Roman Empire, and so this is a continuing element of that question that we asked before: when does the Roman Republic end? There are all these points at which the Republic seems to be destroyed, and yet it emerges in mutated form and continues lurching onward. Likewise, the Battle of Actium ends the civil wars in 31. The Battle of Actium is, in some ways, the end of what we understand as the Republic, and yet the position of Augustus in holding Rome and the Roman Empire together undergoes a series of transitions, a series of stages. And so we have the Battle of Actium, in which he becomes the last man standing, the sole bearer of the weight of responsibility for Roman government, and everybody turns to him. But it's not until 4 years later that we have what's called the first settlement, which is a series of titles and roles assigned to Octavian that indicates his altered status. So it's at this time that he claims that he has restored the Republic, which is to say, he's ended the civil wars, he's returned Rome to normal operation, even though the old mechanisms are functioning only in the sense that they are operated through the will of Octavian. He's given guardianship of the provinces, which indicates that his responsibility isn't merely for the city-state of Rome, but for the entire Roman Empire. Crucially, he's given these titles, Augustus and princeps, which function also as names, which is to say that the name of Augustus, in particular, is something that is passed on as if it were a clan name to all of his successors. And we'll talk more about that later. So he becomes Augustus, and he becomes princeps here, which, remember, Augustus is a title that's given to him by the Senate in recognition of the fact that he's acting, with the approval of the gods, and princeps indicates that he is first speaker, which means, he has a position of guidance on all Roman policy. He also changes his official name at this point. Remember that he was originally named Gaius Octavius. On the death of Caesar and his adoption in Caesar's will, he becomes Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. Now he takes as a first name this word imperator, and the clan name Caesar, and then his filiation, the formal name. Normally, this would be normally this would be Gai Filius, which is to say, son of Gaius. Gaius being Gaius Julius Caesar. That would be his normal official filiation that would be written on any formal records. But because Julius Caesar had been deified at this point, he had been reckoned amongst the gods of the Romans and been given a priest and official cult status, along with Romulus as one of the minor gods of the Roman pantheon. He now styles himself Divi Filius, son of the god. He's given the right to hang the corona civica, which is the special crown that is given to someone who single-handedly saves an army. This is in recognition of his larger role of ending the civil wars, and so saving all of the Roman armies in this way. Interestingly, he's given annual consulship, which means that, in this sense, he's still operating the mechanisms of the Republic. The Republic has not quite ended. The real change is the second settlement. This is the thing that tells us what the Principate is. The second settlement consists of three very important components. He is given the powers of a consul, but without the office of the consul. So this means that he is given the ability to command armies, to override any governor, supreme authority over the city of Rome, which means he can compel any citizen domestically. All of this means that he has the power of a consul in all situations, but not the restrictions and the traditions and the circumscriptions of the office of consul. He is not bound to what a consul has always been for 500 years. He only has the free-ranging authority vested in him as a person. Remember when we talked about the nature of the Republic, we talked about imperium. Somebody is elected consul, but the power to compel a citizen, imperium, is not invested in the office. It doesn't belong to the office. It's not automatic. A consul elect has to be given imperium. It has to be voted to him separately. It's a separate thing, the ability to compel citizens. It's given to a person, not to an office. And here's what we have here. The consular imperium, he doesn't have the office of consul. He's not bound by what a consul can and can't do over 500 years of tradition. All he has is the authority to compel citizens invested in him as a person. Likewise, he is given the special powers of a tribune of the plebs, but not the office. And so he has the powers of a tribune, which means the ability to convene the Senate, and particularly the veto, the ability to contraindicate any action of the Roman government. Sacrosanctity, his person is inviolate, which means that if he is physically assaulted, that is a religious crime. The power of appeal is also invested in him. This is something that, if a citizen of the Roman Empire, a Roman citizen, in the past under the Republic, if the government had mistreated him, a citizen of the Republic has the right to appeal to a tribune of the plebs who takes his case to the Roman populace. The citizenship as a whole can act on his case. And there's a great deal to say about that, which I don't have time for here. But this is now invested in the princeps himself, in Augustus, which is to say that if a citizen is mistreated by a governor or by some other Roman official, he has the right to appeal his case to Augustus himself. And this is something we see happening occasionally in history. This is something associated with, it's seen in the New Testament because Paul is a Roman citizen. And so the point here is, once again, he is not restricted to what a tribune of the plebs can and can't do. He's not bound by 500 years of history associated with the office of the tribune of the plebs. He just has the powers and capabilities and special privileges associated with the plebeian tribunate. And again, the censorship. He is given the power of a censor, but not the office. And so this means he has supervision over membership of the Senate, which is conditioned by property and moral standing. So this means that he is put in a position of the moral judge of the Roman elite, and by extension the Romans, but particularly the Roman elite, are answerable to him as they would have been to a censor in terms of their behavior. Senators who had acted in a way that was inappropriate, scandalous, blasphemous, whatever. Any action that a senator undertook that resulted in widespread opprobrium or was damaging to the standing of the Senate himself, a censor would cast him out and place a black mark against his name in the senatorial rolls, which is where that expression comes from, a black mark against his name. This power is now invested in Augustus as a person. He has the right to review criminal cases and civil cases that are placed before the Roman government, and he has the right to oversee the census, which again shows up in the New Testament. This is the census that's performed across the Roman Empire, is the reason associated with why Joseph and Mary have to return to the city of David, which is another story, but the point is that's the best known example from non-Roman history of the power of the census being exerted by the Augustus. So the Augustus is given the authority of the censor, which places him in this supervisory critical role in relation to the Roman Empire, the populace, and the Roman elite. But he is not bound by what a censor can and can't do. He's not bound by the office. All of these powers, in other words, are invested in Augustus as a person. Augustus, what is the principate then? The principate is the private individual in whom is invested the responsibility of Rome by virtue of the faith and trust invested in him by the Romans. Other things associated with Augustus that are also significant. Later on, he acquires control over the Roman religious system by gaining the power, the title of the Pontifex Maximus, which came to him after the previous occupant had died, and all through this he has had the name of Caesar, which is still of vital importance in signifying what Caesar means now is position of it sort of encapsulates that faith and trust. In other words, this name of Caesar is significant of the central role within this pillar of the Roman community, by virtue of authority and the collective agreement of the Romans. And so, as the name Caesar is passed on, Caesar comes to mean the person who rules as a result of this faith and trust. And Augustus also passed on as a name, comes to mean the person who has this overarching authority beyond everyone else in the Roman world. Both of these belong to individuals. They're names that are associated with a person who has gained this role through the merits, through his capability, through having been selected to be the next person worthy of that faith and trust. The overall timeline of Augustus is massive, and you can imagine that this causes problems because Augustus is the authority in Rome for so long that by the time he finally dies, no one knows any other form of rule. Nobody can truly remember what it was like before him. And the memories and knowledge of what was before him was of the horrors of civil war. And so the question of, can we ever, return to the Republic becomes completely moot because Augustus becomes the one form of holding the Roman community and the Roman Empire, and the Roman economy and the Roman military. Everything about Rome is held up by Augustus for this massive period of time. And we see in this, Augustus comes to this, born in 63, the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44, he's only 19 years old. And so he goes through, this growth as a leader, and he has this sort of, teething period of the triumvirate, which until 31, he has between 44 and 31 to grow into the statue of Caesar. By the time he becomes Augustus in the first settlement, by the time he becomes the man with all the powers of these offices, without the offices himself, the private citizen who is the fulcrum of the Roman world, by this time he has gained experience and stature enough to be truly worthy and capable of undertaking this vast responsibility. But the fact that he's continuing this for decades and decades afterwards means that the question of what could possibly come after him is the most problematic and perilous problem for the Romans themselves. The empire itself is strong and stable. The economy is flourishing. The civil wars had put a dent in the strength and power of the Roman economy, but under Augustus, now that things are stable, the Roman Empire has never been more wealthy, and he very resolutely determines to ensure the stability of Rome by limiting the extent to which it attempts to expand. The Roman Empire under Augustus is essentially stopped where it is. By the time we get to a few decades into his rule, his governance goes up to certain points, and that is where the Roman Empire is meant to stay. And his policy becomes not to attempt to expand further, but to ensure the solidity and calm and peace of everything within it. The Battle of Teutoburg for us is the test of this, and the galvanizing moment of this policy of not extending the Roman Empire any further. The fact that the Battle of Teutoburg for us is this unmitigated disaster puts an end to the Roman drive to conquer the rest of Germany. This had always been a goal of the Romans primarily because there's so many potentially hostile tribes in Germany. It needed to be pacified and Romanized to ensure that the Roman frontier to the north is not put in jeopardy. So the Germania was intended to be the next Gauls. Gaul pacified under the Romans, in previous centuries, mostly under Julius Caesar. Germania was going to be the next step, but this leads to a very ill-judged um, a very ill-judged campaign by the General Verus that results in the loss of 3 legions, and this leads to Augustus's mistrust of generals that are not part of the imperial family, which had already been a policy that was moving into place and now is more or less ensured by Verus's failure, and the assurance that Rome would no longer go on the offensive in attempting to expand outward, but it would rather protect its existing frontiers. For the most part, the story of Augustus's reign is what's referred to as the Pont Romana, the Roman peace. The Romans are not at war with each other. They're not at war with outsiders, and this gives a stable foundation for the extreme success not only of the Roman economy all throughout the Mediterranean, but also of Roman culture. The Romans being able to build a sense of collective cultural identity that includes the various cultures that have been brought within their umbrella. The Pax Romana is the consolidation and re-strengthening of everything we think of in terms of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is created in the Republic, and what Augustus receives is custody of this existing thing that had been created under consuls and dictators and proconsuls. The Roman Empire is already in place. What we call the Roman Emperor is someone whose job it is to ensure that this territory is safe and calm and flourishing. And that is what Augustus represents to the people of the Roman Empire. And we'll see how that turns out and talk more about what that consists of in the next video. For now, that's that.